About that time, I think we can get started. We may have some more folks trickling in as we go along. That's how online programs go these days. But welcome everyone to supporting people with dementia who live alone. My name is Amy Abrams. I am the Director of Education with Alzheimer's San Diego. I've been with the organization for, since our founding for about 6 years now. And I run our community education programs as well as our professional training programs. Very pleased today to be co-presenting with my colleague, Adrianna.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Adrianna McCollum. I'm the Director of Social Programs and Volunteers. And one of my programs we'll talk about a little bit later today, Vitals, is specifically for people who live alone. And my background is in program development and managing volunteers.
Alzheimer's San Diego is a local organization, but we are going to be talking today about programs and resources that are local in our community, in our county here in San Diego, California. But of course, we know we've got folks from other parts of the US here. We're happy to have you. The issues are the same, no matter where you are, and hopefully we'll be able to help point you towards some resources and supports in your own community. So please, I'm not going to sit here and read aloud everything that's coming in the chat, but thank you. It's great to see everyone who's here. This is webinar, so you are able to submit questions using the Q&A. We are going to have time at the end of the program for Adrianna and I will read through questions and answer those as best we can. So please feel free to use chat to share with each other, to introduce yourself to each other, share resources, share ideas. And if you have questions for us, please put those into the Q&A. That helps us kind of stay organized as we're going through the program here today. So, excuse me, before we get going, Alzheimer's San Diego is a local nonprofit organization. We are an independent organization. We are not affiliated with any national organizations. We just serve San Diego County. Our mission is to help people who are affected by dementia, to fight stigma, and we support research. We'll be telling you about a couple of our programs in some detail here today, but at the end of the program, if you'd like to learn more about us, of course, there's lots of opportunity to do that. I would like to thank and acknowledge our partners at the San Diego Imperial Geriatric Education Center who made this program possible, made it free for folks. Much of the education we do is directed toward people who are living with dementia and their care partners, but through the GWEP program, the Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program, which is a nationwide program, we are able to make free programming available to professionals in our community as well. We're very grateful for that. Before I move on, I should also acknowledge the Administration for Community Living, who fund several of our programs at Alzheimer's San Diego and have really helped us understand the needs and the issues of people who are living with dementia, who live alone, and have helped us create some of these programs and supports that we'll be talking with you about here today. So quick review of our objectives. And I want to just say I am assuming a basic working knowledge of dementia among all of our attendees here today. If that's not the case and you would like to know more about Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, we of course have many resources to help you learn more about the diseases, the pathologies, getting a diagnosis, the management of symptoms, et cetera. But for today, we're going to just sort of assume a basic knowledge of the Alzheimer's disease and other progressive types of dementia. So we'll be talking about the issue, the prevalence of people with dementia who live alone here in San Diego County specifically, the identified needs and challenges that have come about through research in this area. We're going to talk about best practices, existing programs and supports that are out there, what we can all do in our various types of work. And I see from the information that's coming in the chat, you all do a wonderful array, provide a wonderful array of support to folks living with dementia. So we're going to talk about some things that we can all do in these various settings to help people with dementia engage in thoughtful care planning about their future, talk about some existing models of support, what's been successful, what the challenges have been, and then talk about how all of this applies to you in your work. what we need to do in terms of shifting our perspectives, changing the way we do things in our work, and what we can do to better connect people to other local resources and supports. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adrianna.
Great, thanks, Amy. So as Amy laid out, we're going to start with defining the issue. What does it look like here in San Diego? We have about a quarter of all households here in the county, householders living alone, which is actually a little lower than the national number. About 28% of people live alone nationwide. And it's important for us to first say that we don't want to pathologize living alone. It's a normal, common, healthy thing. If you're like me, have a couple of teenagers in the house, I look fondly back to my days of living alone. I really did enjoy it a lot. And today, in fact, there are more adults who are single than married the first time in centuries. So there's a lot of people living alone, living very vital, good lives. And there's a difference between living alone and being alone. It's not always a solitary experience. In fact, a lot of people, according to Eric Kleinenberg's book, Going Solo, he has a lot of statistics, a lot of great information that, many people who live alone actually spend more time socializing and being out than married people. So it can be really empowering. It's just a matter of when individuals develop dementia, then there are risks involved. And looking at that issue here in San Diego, we have about 100,000 residents in the county who are living with dementia. And that doesn't include a number of people with younger onset. So there's a lot of people here in the county. It's also a very big county. And a quarter of those individuals who were living with dementia also live alone. And people in early stages can live very successfully on their own, living with the disease. It's really a matter of when identifying risks and being able to provide support for them, as they're, becoming a little less capable on their own. So Amy, if you could go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, in an early stage, people can live successfully on their own, but there's no, one day in the disease. There's not like day 935 where everyone knows, okay, this is when people can't live alone anymore. So the goal for us is to identify those risks and to be able to provide supports. So the risk that we see, of course, elder abuse is something that is a risk for any older adult, and especially for people who are live alone. So self-neglect is a big one. It's when potentially people are for example, they're not able to bathe and to keep to feed themselves well. They may not realize they need to bathe. They may think that they've already eaten when maybe it's been 2 days. There's also financial exploitation. So, we all have heard about the the senior scams. Of course, the people who are living with dementia alone are at higher risk of those. And also a big perpetrator of elder abuse is by family. And so you could have the grandson coming over and asking the grandma to buy him a car, and she may not have the ability to understand that, maybe she doesn't have the resources for it. Somebody could come to the door and sell a magazine subscription for $4,000, and they wouldn't really have the cognitive skills to understand it's not the right amount of money to pay for something like that. So the risk of elder abuse is very high among people who live alone. Their inability to manage daily activities and self-care, and this is when self-neglect comes in as well. As I mentioned, they may not realize they haven't bathed, so they may go days without it. Being able to eat and be healthy, so perhaps they don't realize they haven't eaten for a while. Maybe they have difficulty actually accessing food. They live alone. They're not able to get the food they need, or maybe they don't realize that the food they have has gone bad, or maybe there's even things in the home that are not food that they mistake, like a bottle of dish soap that looks like orange juice and potentially could cause them harm. So there's a lot of risks that go in, especially as people progress in the disease, for their safety. Medication mismanagement is a big one. Whether they are forgetting to take their medication, or they double up because they realize they forgot one. And of course, again, the access to their medication, whether they're able to get to the store, being able to ask for what they need. So the medication can be a big problem. And a lot of these things create kind of the feedback loops where maybe they're not getting the right medication, they may be more confused, they may be more prone to something like falling. There are home safety concerns that potentially they're not able to identify unsafe conditions. There's perhaps there's like a broken tile on the steps, or the rug has gotten crumpled where they could potentially fall. And there's for a lot of people who are living with the disease who have a care partner at home, they have a person there who can look out for them, who can straighten the rug, who can fix the step that might be broken. And this is something that happens with wandering as well, that 6 out of 10 individuals living with dementia wander. And it's especially a risk when people live alone, because they don't have that care partner to notice, oh, that my wife went to get the mail and it's been a couple minutes, I'm gonna go check on her. She's walked down the street, I'm gonna follow her. So wandering can be another really big issue for people who are living alone, as well as the inability to respond to emergencies. One, are they able to identify what an emergency is, how to respond? It could be a fire alarm that actually scares them so much it creates a more unsafe situation for them. It's a potential of, if they got hurt, at some point, people living with the disease have a decreased sensitivity to pain, so they may not realize they were seriously injured. And then, of course, the social isolation and loneliness. It's so not that they're living alone. That's one issue, but they're also potentially withdrawing more. That's something that happens with people living with dementia, is that they withdraw, they isolate. There's some depression. Part of it is potentially not wanting people to see that they have Alzheimer's, or to know that they're forgetting things, so they withdraw even more from friends and family. And then some people just don't have any friends or family to help them. So again, the main thing is to identify these kinds of risks so we can provide support where we can to keep them living successfully. Okay, Amy. So there are additional needs as well. Many of you may have heard of this phenomenon. It's anosognosia. It's a Greek word for without disease knowledge. So it actually means that a lot of people, about 50% of people living with the disease, actually have no awareness that they have Alzheimer's or dementia. So they can be resistant, non-compliant. They just may not understand why you were there trying to help them. We see this a lot in a couple of my programs. So I oversee our respite program, where we have volunteers come to the home to provide a break for the care partner, and also oversee Vitals, where we provide telephone support to people who live alone. And there's definitely the sense among some of them, why are you calling, or why are you here? I don't need a babysitter, I don't need this. And so the lack of awareness that they do have needs is a big hurdle. And sometimes that requires some reframing of the reason why we're there. Additional issue is screening and diagnosis. So actually knowing that they have the disease. The screening is a very complex process, and it requires a lot of professionals, multiple doctor's appointments, managing information, ability to follow next steps and advocate for oneself, which can be challenging. And then of course the diagnosis itself. A 2015 study showed that 47% of people, about 50% of people who have the disease, are not actually getting the diagnosis from their doctor. whether the doctor, could be their longtime family physician and they don't want to break the bad news to their patient, and they feel, oh, well, this is fatal anyway, what can, nothing can cure it, so why do I want to, ruin the rest of their life? Or potentially they have family who don't want the information shared with the person. So actually knowing what they're dealing with is an issue, and there are medications that can help slow it down a little bit. There are things that they can do to increase their quality of life and their ability to manage the disease if they actually have a diagnosis, which unfortunately is not happening for a lot of people. Then advocating for advocating for themselves. They, again, as I mentioned, a lot of people will withdraw. There's the stigma, so they don't want to be, they don't want people to know that they have the disease or that they're forgetting things. And so they don't have potentially advocates for themselves. They can't advocate their own health. They don't want to maybe reveal that they've forgotten an appointment or forgotten information that was given to them. And then they don't have people helping them enroll in support programs. So that's a big issue for us with Vitals. This is a self-selecting program. And a lot of people, whether they have anosognosia, don't really realize they have a need for the program, or they just are not aware of it, or they don't know how. They're afraid to call and ask questions, to reveal that they have some forgetfulness. So just getting them to participate can be very challenging. Of course, COVID has brought a lot of challenges, and that's safety, understanding what it is, even more isolation, reduced access to resources. So that's been a really big challenge. And then quality of life considerations, getting out and doing things safely. Intergenerational contact is a big one. A lot of older adults want to be generational. They want to, nurture and guide younger generations. They can learn new skills and tech from younger people, but they just don't have access. The companionship from animals is something I've seen a lot in my programs, where the family takes away the animal, from the people living alone, which we of course understand, but then it leaves them lacking that kind of like companionship that they may not get anywhere else. And transportations always come up in our program as well. That's a big issue for just, they're not able to drive anymore, or they're driving unsafely. They don't have access to transportation to get to their doctor's appointments and places they need to go. So these are things that we need to consider in addition to the major risk factors. Okay, thanks, Amy.
Great. So thank you so much, Adrianna. I just want to pause for a moment here and acknowledge we are so far painting a pretty grim picture of the nature of these disabilities, the decline that is unfortunately inevitable, and the risk. But I do want to remind all of us that Alzheimer's disease and related dementias do produce a long, slow decline, right? So if we're able to detect these conditions and intervene early, we can support a person's individual agency and their choices throughout this disease process, and make it a little bit less of a grim situation for them. The word agency, just to be clear, this refers to an individual's ability to take independent action or to choose to take that independent action. And research shows, and I think it's intuitively understood, but it is confirmed through research, that people with dementia, and especially people with dementia who live alone, are often marginalized in the decision-making process about many areas of their lives. So we, as service providers, can engage in what we call supported decision-making. Right? This allows us to help enhance an individual's agency over their own life. So Adrianna and her colleagues in her programs here at Alzheimer's San Diego are very aware that people with dementia should be given the dignity of choice, right? That self-selection, raising your hand and saying, yes, I want to be part of this program. I want to obtain this service. And of course, that is always our goal whenever it is possible. Do keep in mind, these long, slow, progressive conditions, there are for many people, for most people, many years where a person is still going to have full decision-making capacity. They may need support in making those decisions, but they've still got the legal capacity to make their own decisions. But of course, the question is always looming large, right, over our heads as professionals supporting these folks. Alzheimer's disease related dementias are chronic and progressive, and we absolutely have to be planning ahead for a time when it is not going to be safe for a person to be making decisions totally independently. So first, let's start with the what, the important conversations that we can start through our assessment or our care planning process, depending on who you are and how you work with folks who are living with dementia. You may be engaged in some of this. You may be engaged in the full process of doing a complete assessment, setting up systems of support and monitoring those systems, or you might just be making recommendations in one or more of these areas. So we'll start with the what here, and then we'll dive in a little bit into the how. So a couple of considerations when it comes to care planning with people with dementia, especially people with dementia who live alone. First, of course, as Adrianna has highlighted, we want to focus on safety. So what are some of the care planning strategies that we can propose, walk a person through, and potentially help them get in place? A regular check-in system, right? Telephonic support system, in telephonic check-in systems, or in-person visitation, if at all possible. Helping people procure emergency response systems. Now, there are, of course, inevitable challenges with the applicability of a personal response system for a person who's living with dementia, who's living alone, right? Their ability to remember to push the button, to know how to wait for emergency responders to arrive, et cetera. But again, if we're supporting people, if we're intervening early, there should be a good amount of time that a person will be able to benefit from the use of an emergency response system. Getting people enrolled in wandering response programs. Here in San Diego County, we have a program called Take Me Home. I'll tell you a little more about that a bit later, but many metropolitan areas have these voluntary registries like the Take Me Home program, where you can enroll a person. There's also Medic Alert, which is a nationwide program. You can enroll a person in the program so that if they do wander, if they do become lost, there is a support system, a safety net in place that can spring into action quickly and help them get returned home as soon as possible. Really important that we partner with local law enforcement, the local business community. Here in San Diego, we have an organization called PERT, the Psychiatric Emergency Response Team. In addition to PERT and our relationships with law enforcement and the sheriff's department, police departments, right, we've been able to build a really nice safety net here in San Diego County. We also connect with our local business community. This is all part of a person's personal safety net, right? The people who live nearby, if they don't live in the same house, the people who live nearby, the neighbors, the law enforcement providers who support them should be part of their safety net. Helping people with household safety checks. I know many of you do this in your work, helping people think about fall risk, how to prevent fall risk, ways that they can organize their homes, declutter their homes, and generally make them more dementia friendly. So lots to think about when it comes to safety, of course. Health and personal care. I think this is the area that tends to get the most focus from many of us in our work with people who are living with dementia, and it is important, right? So some of the care planning considerations when it comes to health and personal care, right? Setting up, helping people connect with medical providers or obtain care through visiting physicians can be very helpful. Nutrition programs, either communal meals out in the community or grocery or in-home meal delivery. Medication management systems, automated reminder systems are less useful for most people who are living with dementia. Human intervention is usually the safest way to help a person manage their medications, but of course not feasible for every person. And then, of course, many of you are working in the field of in-home care, and the ability to support a person with personal care, those basic activities of daily living, the instrumental activities of daily living, taking care of personal hygiene. All of this is, of course, critical to a person's well-being. Financial, I'm gonna dive in a little deeper on this here in a moment, but helping people get set up with things like online banking, direct deposits, automating as much of that safely as we can for people is very helpful. Bringing in professionals like daily money managers, people to help sort the mail, rerouting mail so that it's just not, sort of there to be a source of distraction or confusion to begin with. And then, of course, helping people engage in planning ahead for substitute decision makers. Again, I'll talk more about that in a moment. The household considerations, of course, those pets that Adrianna mentioned, they require a lot of love and care and attention, and that can become difficult over time for a person with dementia to manage. Not to mention the fall risk, the injury risk associated with pets and people who are living with dementia. For most people, the benefits far outweigh the costs, but it does take some planning. But we can support people in thinking about, as your pet ages, as you age, right? What can we put in place to make sure that you're both going to be healthy and safe? Housekeeping services, meal preparation services, or shopping services, lawn and garden care, and just general sort of maintenance and household repairs. It's, a person, often we're getting involved with people who've been living in the same home for many, many years. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, and sort of thinking about what we're going to do if the roof springs a leak is not something a lot of people are thinking about when they engage us for help in thinking about their long-term care. But in order to be there safely over time, those broken tiles that Adrianna was mentioning, who's gonna take care of that? We have to help people think ahead about a time that they're gonna need support around those things. Social life is a very important part of, should be a very key part of our care planning process. Helping people engage with their natural support system if they have one, helping them develop one if they don't. Right, engaging in their community, connecting them to senior services, senior centers, libraries, helping people connect to adult day programs, participating in online groups and activities. A lot of new things have sprung up during the pandemic that will continue to sort of run parallel online, in addition to in-person socializing and in-person social activities. So don't overlook the importance of keeping a person socially active when it comes to their safety and well-being, especially when living alone. And transportation, you see this issue just keeps coming up again and again. I imagine this to be an important issue everywhere. It's certainly important in a giant spread out county like San Diego. Personal transportation planning, critically important. This is something, dementia or not, living alone or not, we really need to be supporting all of our clients and thinking ahead about a time when they're not going to be able to drive independently. So researching the public and paratransit systems, finding those on-demand and ride-sharing programs. In all of these ways, we can support people who are living with dementia, living alone. Just a few words on the topic, back to that important topic of financial and in particular legal planning. It is really impossible to overstate the importance of advanced care planning for all of us, but most especially for people with dementia who are living alone. Discussions about these other things that we've been talking about, these practical care planning considerations, can really be a nice opening, a nice way to gently push the door open to these more heady conversations about advanced care planning, getting your powers of attorney in place. Right, having a conversation about transportation, in-home meal delivery. This feels a little softer, a little easier for many of our clients and also for us as professionals, and can be a really nice opening. Who is currently your point of contact for this type of assistance? And is that person someone you could trust to help support you in making decisions in the future? I think it is often, we don't want to resort to scare tactics, but it really is important to talk to people about the consequences of not, for example, having one's powers of attorney named, documented, having all of that documentation in place and current, making sure that your agents for power of attorney know that they have been named as such, and know what it is that they want. Giving people some information about what happens if they don't engage in that can be really helpful. Again, not to paint a scary picture, but really to empower people, teaching people about the conservatorship process, which we call it here in California, guardianship, in other places. Talking to them about what happens when people later in dementia lose control over their choices, when they lose that agency, should they not have engaged in the important task of thinking about who they want to be their advocate, who's going to be their primary point of contact. So I think it can be really helpful to just describe advanced care planning as an essential life task for all of us, which it is, right? All adults over the age of 18 should be thinking ahead about a time that they are going to be incapacitated, because it is going to happen to all of us, if it's just on a short-term basis or if it is on a permanent basis. We all need to engage in this process of reflection about what our wishes are, documenting them, and communicating them. So I really encourage you to not shy away from this topic, regardless of your relationship with the person. These are important questions to be asking very early on in your care planning process with them, regardless of what kind of an ongoing relationship you're going to have. Please bring these issues to folks' attention as early as possible. I mean, of course, our goal is always to get people living with dementia connected to resources and supports early to prolong their ability to live independently if that's their wish. But you may also not get brought in until later in their journey. So you might need to be part of this process of guiding them through the difficult decision about whether or not it is still safe for them to live alone. I'm not going to read through everything that you see on the screen here. This is an excerpt of a really terrific decision guide that was created by the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. And the full document with this checklist, as well as a full care plan, decision guide and care planning tool, is going to be emailed to all of you along with your the handouts, the slides from this program. All of you who are in attendance will get a copy of this, so you'll be able to read through it in some detail. But if it's hard to see on your screen, just want to give you a couple of examples of the types of questions it can prompt you to think about, to talk through with the person. If the person had an accident, such as a fall, do they have the physical or cognitive ability to get themselves to a safe place or to use an alert system to call for help? Can the person remember to eat regular meals? Are they able to store food safely and properly? Is the person able to monitor and manage their daily medications and such? So again, we are providing you with a copy of this tool in your handouts. I find it to be a really essential care planning tool. And now Adrianna is going to talk with you about some existing models of support that are out there that we can connect people with dementia who are living alone too.
Thanks, Amy. So we'll start with the Dementia Friendly America. This was started in the UK and brought to the United States. It's a national network of communities, organizations, and individuals who are looking to ensure that communities across the US are equipped to support people living with dementia, as well as the care partners. A dementia-friendly community is a city, county, village that's informed, safe, and respectful of individuals with the disease, and again, of the care partners. They want to bring together segments of the community like libraries, restaurants, healthcare, banking, to provide supportive options that foster quality of life. So there are, in California, we in San Diego are a dementia-friendly community, as well as Los Angeles, Riverside, and a few other counties across California. And as well in California, there is the Friendship Line. This is through the Institute on Aging. It's a free crisis intervention hotline and a warm line for non-emergency support calls. And it's been around for about 45 years. It's now a partner with the California Department on Aging, and it's a toll-free number available 24/7. For those who are on Facebook, there's the Living Alone and Connected group. This was actually created during COVID as a response to the strained human interaction due to the isolation that everybody feels. So what they do is they curate and post information to benefit people living with dementia, to provide information, but also a sense of comfort and connection. So they have everything from healthy tips, opportunities to connect with each other, information on workshops, research studies, things like that. It's a really lively Facebook page. I think it's a great way for people to connect just a little more passively if they want to feel connected to somebody. In San Diego also, we have the You Are Not Alone program, the YANA, and this is through the County Sheriff's Department. So the individuals living with dementia must live within the sheriff's jurisdiction, but they get calls Monday through Friday before 10. And if after 3 calls from the volunteer, the person doesn't pick up, then one of the senior volunteer patrol units actually goes out to check on them. In addition to that, they get a social visit from the volunteer patrol, which I understand is the best part of the program for the clients, just getting that socialization in. There's also Elder Help's Are You Okay program, where calls Monday through Friday at designated times, 8, 9, 10, and 11, to older adults 60 or older. And this is a donation-based program. And that's available to people here in San Diego. Oh, thank you, Amy, posting the Living Alone and Connected Facebook page. And then we have the Dementia Friendly Initiative here in San Diego is part of the Dementia Friendly America. That's how it looks here in San Diego as being a dementia friendly community. And so the vision is to help individuals living with dementia live independently and also be welcomed and encouraged by others to engage, to be out in the community, to get the support. So the strategy is to incorporate some different dementia-friendly elements. So things like transportation, housing, healthcare, to promote the education and awareness of dementia-friendly practices. We also here at Alzheimer's San Diego, we are part of that dementia-friendly initiative, as well as offering a lot of other support to people who live alone with the disease. Amy, if you want to switch it over. Okay, so as part of the Dementia Friendly Initiative here in San Diego, Alzheimer's San Diego is part of the Dementia Friendly Theme Team. So that's kind of the action arm of the Dementia Friendly Initiative. Their work groups or dementia friendly theme teams, they incorporate friendly elements. They try to promote Dementia Friends of America concepts and tools and coordinate with the Alzheimer's Project roundtables to maximize the group's efforts. The different theme teams are dementia friendly, helping community support, transportation, housing, and social participation. The theme teams meet monthly to share expertise, create tools and ideas to help the community be dementia friendly. So in addition to that, we have our gatekeeper program where we train gatekeepers. So this is staff at local businesses, libraries, banks, etc., to recognize signs of dementia, to be dementia friendly, provide help, referrals to us. And really the broader idea is this is helps people in the community be more comfortable broaching the subject of dementia. There's a lot of stigma, as we've, as I brought up a couple of times. So it's just helping people out there in the community identify those who may have dementia, provide them support, and just to be more comfortable with people in our community living with the disease. We also have partnerships with law enforcement and adult protective services. So Amy mentioned PERT a little while ago. So through different programs, we work with law enforcement to provide training to officers, to the PERT officers. Law enforcement then can provide us referrals to provide further support to the individuals. You may have also heard of the Alzheimer's response team. We are one of the providers involved in that program. We get involved to provide support to anyone living alone with dementia. And then we have our clinical services team here at Alzheimer's San Diego. We have a whole team of people who are available to answer calls, set up Zoom meetings, just to help people navigate any issue, get emotional support, and get access to some resources. The clinical services team is definitely a group of people who have a high level of expertise in dementia and are really a great resource for anyone, even care partners, long distance people, professionals, just to get more information and learn more about how we can support people living alone with Alzheimer's, with dementia. And then our volunteer services programs, we have a couple that do directly support people living alone with the disease. We have our tech team, so we have volunteers who are available, ready to make phone calls to people to help them navigate how to download Zoom, get set up on different video platforms, to even help them understand their smartphone. So there's a team of volunteers who really just want to help people be successful in connecting online or connecting remotely, to get support, to get services, to get companionship. And then we have our Vitals program, which I'll talk about a little bit of detail in the next slide. So Vitals was created last year, and partly in response to COVID. We really felt that we needed to reach out even more to people who were living alone with the disease because of the increased isolation. So as I mentioned earlier, clients need to self-select to be participants. We do try to get as many people involved, care partners or social workers out there in the community who can recommend the program, but ultimately it comes down to the person choosing to be part of the program. They can receive calls Monday through Friday between 12 to 2 or 2 to 4. And they're friendly calls, last anywhere from a few minutes to 45 minutes. And the volunteers help them with reminders for upcoming appointments and inquire about food deliveries, making sure they have adequate food. And of course, the most important thing is the socialization, and a lot of great feedback from the clients about how meaningful and how much they look forward to the calls. So I think that my time is up on the slide. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Adrianna. I just put in the chat a form that you can use if you have someone you think might be interested in getting calls through the Vitals program, or you just like to learn more about it from Adrianna. I put that in the chat. For those of you who are watching this webinar later, you can just reach out to us through our website, alzsd.org. I'm very proud of the Vitals program, if you can't tell already. So what can you do outside from creating your own robust volunteer outreach program? What can you do in your work to better support people with dementia who are living alone? I think it needs to start just by sort of examining our own selves, as most worthwhile things do, right? Knowing your own values, understanding what your perceptions are, where are your biases when it comes to people living with dementia. I encourage everyone to consider the language that you use, the way you think about, the way you talk about people who are living with dementia. Is it positive? Is it affirming? Is it inclusive, right? And if not, make some changes internally, externally, in the way that you're thinking and communicating about dementia, just sort of checking those assumptions. I think when it comes to working one-on-one with someone, it's really important to start just by building trust, right? Of course, there's rapport building. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. We'll fix that link. Thank you for the note on that. It's important to build trust, right? Both with the individual person that you're working with, but also in your broader attempts to reach people with dementia who are living in the community. Again, transportation and home delivered meals for a lot of people are sort of the easiest services to accept. They're very practical, they're very tangible. There's a little less stigma associated with them than some other things. transportation maybe less so. But these are a great place to start in the process of building trust, right? Once you've been able to help somebody successfully access a program, you're likely to have that door sort of cracked so you can come in and start asking for connections to other people in their life, other people who know this person. There are some cases where a person really truly has no family, has no social connections, does not know their neighbors. Yes, this absolutely happens, but in many cases, there are people, they may not be geographically close by, but there are people that you can inquire with. So I encourage you to, as you're gaining that person's trust, to start requesting that contact information, permission to contact. May I check in with them, right? Once that trust has been established. When you're doing outreach in your community, consider who else touches these clients. I talked about this earlier. Make contact with those folks. Get to know the local, sheriff's substation or local law enforcement, first responders, an apartment manager, churches nearby, in-home care workers, of course, transportation providers, volunteers, the local businesses, neighborhood groups, anybody who might know people with dementia who are living alone. Feel free, by the way, in the chat if you want to put any other ideas or suggestions you have for people in your community, general groups of people who might be able to connect you to help you identify people with dementia who are living alone. If I've missed any, feel free to share those with us. Do consider, have a look, evaluate the services that you and your organization provide. Look at them objectively from the perspective of a person with dementia who's living alone, and ask yourself, how easy would it be for someone to access your services? Where are the barriers? And see if you can work to overcome some of those. In her work developing and administering our volunteer programs that she's been telling you about, Adrianna and her team have gotten very adept at identifying the landmines that break trust with clients, right? Steering away from messaging that communicates that this service is here to support people who are sick, right? People who are living with disease. Get to know sort of the contours of people's lives so you can avoid those conversations. People with dementia are often experiencing feelings of suspicion or paranoia. Learn what those landmines are so you can avoid those topics that trigger those behaviors or those emotions. Of course, we are going to be most successful in all of this if we can identify and intervene early in a person's disease process. So when we have identified someone who is living with inadequate support, what resources can we connect them with? These are some of the key resources we refer to here in San Diego County. They're local to our region, but you're likely to have similar resources if you're in another sort of metropolitan area in the United States. Most of you are probably familiar with PACE, the Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, which is a Medicare, Medicaid funded program that helps people age 55 plus who are nursing home eligible, who require that level of care, but it helps them to receive that type of medical and social support out in the community instead of within a facility setting so that they can remain at home. Take Me Home. Here is that secure and confidential wandering response system that I mentioned before, called a voluntary wandering response registry. There are many of these around the country. Take Me Home was among the first, and it's pretty widely regarded around the US. It is operated by our sheriff's department so that it has jurisdiction everywhere in the county, but every local law enforcement department has access to it. And it gives law enforcement in every region of this county quick access to critical information about somebody who's living with a disability should they get lost or wander. Of course, Take Me Home is only as useful as the amount of information that's in it. So getting people who are living with dementia, and especially those who are living alone, registered in the program is critically important. We can access the non-emergency police line or sheriff's line to request welfare checks when needed on people who we have concerns about, in addition to the You Are Not Alone program that Adrianna mentioned before, which makes check-in calls and visits. And then, of course, there's all of you, right? We rely on you heavily. We connect our folks to vetted resource lists of local providers, attorneys, legal services, professional fiduciaries, professional care managers, aging life care professionals, and in-home service providers, of course. And then, it sort of goes without saying, but certainly referring to Alzheimer's San Diego and organizations like ours that support people with dementia and their care partners. What else? Does anybody have any other, feel free to throw it in the chat. Are there other resources here in San Diego County or elsewhere around the country that you lean on in your work in supporting people who are living with dementia, alone or not? If there are, please feel free to put those into the chat in the follow-up email that we send out to everyone after this program. I will include any resources or ideas that are shared. So feel free to just go ahead and throw those in there. Okay. So let's take a few moments here, our final few minutes of the program, and see if you have any questions. I don't see anything in the Q&A. Nope. Anybody have any questions for us? A scenario that you would like to bring to our attention and get some advice or support on? We have a few minutes left, and we are here to help. Enjoy the awkward silence for a few moments. Well, if anybody's got questions, you are just throw them into the chat or the Q&A. I think you can also. Okay.
I guess we're so thorough, they just have no questions.
Yeah, I suppose. There is what role, if any, here is the question, I'll read it out loud for those who are not able to see the chat. What role, if any, do primary care physicians play in your network, and how do you get them on board? Woo! Great question. And honestly, one of my great challenges in my role here at Alzheimer's San Diego. So the question, what role do primary care physicians play? So here in San Diego County, Adrianna mentioned our Live Well initiative. We also have something that is called the Alzheimer's Project, a countywide initiative that our County Board of Supervisors took on many years ago, once they sort of started to recognize the impact that Alzheimer's and dementia were having on this region. One of the goals of that program was to lower our dependence on specialists for making diagnoses and supporting people with dementia, because there are so many thousands of people impacted. We really need primary care providers to be better trained, more knowledgeable, not only about the disease process, how to make the diagnosis, how to support them, but also how to connect people to resources directly. There is the big barrier, right? Getting dementia education into medical schools, we're still working on that. It's still not a part of standard physician training for unless folks are going into a geriatrics fellowship, or of course neurology or psychiatry. For the most part, people can get all the way through medical school without learning about dementia, but we're kind of chipping away at that by partnering with our local school of medicine to try to get some programming into curriculum, extra dementia training opportunities for them. But where we've really focused our attention is that sort of pipeline from primary care physician to service providers, getting them to just know that we exist, not just us, Alzheimer's San Diego, but the entire broad network of supports and services that is out there. There's a local group called Champions for Health, which has done a tremendous job. One tool that they've created a toolkit a physician support toolkit that is bound, printed, getting out to doctors' offices, actually, I think as we speak, to allow doctors to have a quick source, a kind of a handy reference for once you've made that diagnosis, how do you direct people? We know doctors are not going to be able to be familiar with us, with all of you who are out there. But if they can sort of quickly look for a quick number, a quick website, a quick tip sheet handout that they can give to people, if we can make that as easy as possible for them, that is our goal. Champions for Health also created an app, which is really terrific, that we encourage primary care physicians in particular to download onto their smartphones or into their mobile devices that can quickly allow them to just sort of look up information about dementia support organizations. So getting primary care physicians on board is no easy task, but it is absolutely critically important. They are part of this safety net. Many people with dementia who are living alone are still accessing healthcare services, so they can be a really key part of the identification process. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll keep moving here. So here's Alzheimer's San Diego in quick snapshot. And by the way, if more questions come in, just come up, just type them in and we'll address them at the very end here. But in our final moments, just want to make sure that you are all familiar with the array of free programs and services that we offer at Alzheimer's San Diego. Adrianna mentioned our clinical services team. They are available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, to take questions, connect people to resources. All of our programs and services are free to the families, the individuals and families who access them. If we don't do it, we probably can help people find someone who does. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out with questions or any sort of resource or support needs that you have. We've got dozens of support groups currently meeting virtually, a lot of educational opportunities, both live webinar programming for people with dementia and their family caregivers, other care partners, as well as for professionals like this one. Adrianna mentioned our volunteer tech team, our Vitals, Volunteers in Touch telephone check-in program, as well as our Respite All's Companions program, where we're pairing those screened and trained volunteers with people with dementia to give care partners a little bit of a break. We can help people identify local research opportunities. Again, if we don't do it, we probably know someone who does. So just reach out to us anytime and let us know how we can help. I won't go through these. I'm just pointing out that they're going to be in your handouts. Many of the partnering organizations that we've mentioned here today will be sending you out this list of links to those organizations for more information. And of course, some of the references that we used in putting this information together. After the webinar ends, you're going to get directed to a quick survey. We would love your feedback on the program. Please take a moment to complete that. We will be sending out an email later today with the slides from today, as well as these additional resources, information about Vitals, as well as that dementia, living alone with dementia decision guide that I mentioned before. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us or to us as an organization more broadly with any questions or needs that you have. Thank you so much for coming today, for your interest in this very important topic, and for the work that all of you do in supporting people who are living with dementia in our communities. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for coming today. Appreciate your time.